Hi everyone, Lopthany Sided Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Jim O'Rourke record, Simple Songs. Jim is a prolific multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, a jack of all musical trades, and he's been at it for decades now, with his most popular releases falling kind of under that alternative singer-songwriter tag. And on the albums that are in that style, Jim takes on a multitude of different musical influences. You might hear just indie rock or lo-fi music or country rock, maybe even some art pop, folk and chamber pop, jazz. Did I say jazz? Jazz, and jazz. And then we have a lot of Jim's solo work, his early stuff, the Steam Room series, the Old News series, records that dabble in noise, drone, ambient, improvisational music of different types. He has also been in numerous bands over the years, or has appeared on the records of numerous bands over the years. Then he has countless collaborative albums with Lee Ronaldo of Sonic Youth and Mats Gustafsson, as well as Merzbow, and Oren Ambarchi just dropped a record with him. He's also worked with the experimental jazz and rock band Fire. Jim has more collaborative records than some artists just have normal core studio records. So despite all of the various projects, all the experimentation over the years with various forms of rock and electronic music and experimental music and everything, Simple Songs heads back into that singer-songwriter direction that people seem to gravitate toward the most. But truth be told, Simple Songs is not really that simple. On this LP, we get a series of slightly eccentric rock and pop tunes that are highly baroqued with one layer of strings after another. Very lush arrangements all over this record. There's some nice piano weaved in as well. And these arrangements steal the show to the point where they kind of outshine Jim's vocals, which is a bit of a letdown. I don't think Jim has done a singer-songwriter record thus far, at least to my knowledge, though I have not heard all of his records. Shocker, who has? But what I know of his singer-songwriter material thus far, he's just sounding a little more emotionally detached vocally than usual. Still, he does bring some clever and decent lyrics from what I can make out of them on tracks like Friends with Benefits and Half-Life Crisis, and a few of the songs toward the back end here where his vocals step out just a little bit more. But for the most part, his vocals lack so much presence that I just find my mind kind of just gravitating toward the instrumentals, which actually aren't that bad. I really like nearly every instrumental here, like with the opening cut where we get the incredibly dramatic ascending guitar lead and strings that finish the song out, and the very nice country rock riffs that start the song off just feel really rootsy and fun and really captivating. Then with the song That Weekend, we are getting some Baroque pop with some whispered vocals, some just very lightly tempo keeping strings. It's very dramatic. Jim knows how to compose songs to elicit emotional reactions, and yeah, it's very nice. On the song Half-Life Crisis, we get a little 70s pop rock, a little bit of 70s piano rock, like in the vein of Todd Rundgren or Elton John. I love the harmonized guitar leads on this track, and later as the song progresses, we get these almost orchestral layers of strings. However, as the instrumentation piles on, Jim's vocals get even more lost, to the point where I'm just kind of wondering why even record a vocal to begin with. On the more instrumentally stripped back tracks, this isn't really that much of an issue, but when Jim is kind of competing with his own instrumentation when he's singing, I don't know, I just can't help but feel like I'm not getting everything I could out of this record because a core element of his songwriting is just barely audible. The vocals step out into the spotlight a little bit more, like on the acoustic cut These Hands, or on Last Year, which feels like a little bit of classic rock. And it's at this point on the record that I guess this album fits the Simple Songs bill, only in that it's not so abstract and experimental like many of Jim's other albums. Because while the very complicated instrumental arrangements all over this LP are pretty cool and just very much ear candy, I just can't help but feel like there are, again, core elements of Jim's songwriting that are kind of neglected in the face of just kind of showing his talents for arranging. And while the string arrangements aren't bad, I mean, they are key to especially how the back end of this record works. I mean, the very end of this album features some incredible building string sections which give this album a powerful finish. The track previous to that is one of the softer in the track listing here, but is incredibly lush because of these arrangements, just very pretty on the ears. But I still can't help but feel like just an element of this recipe is kind of missing. These bold and creative arrangements, I think, should also be complemented with a bold and creative and memorable lead vocal. But really, they're not. And it's not like Jim's vocals are mixed low and kind of muffled or mumbled in an experimental or eccentric sense. A lot of the time it just kind of feels like he's just a little out to lunch. So this thing was by no means a terrible record, and I think hardcore fans will be excited to know that he's kind of returned to this sound, even if it's just for 37 minutes. Outside of the fact that it's been a while since Jim has done a record like this, I'm just not really seeing anything else to be excited over with this album, because as I'm experiencing it musically, just not much is sticking with me, aside from the very finely tuned and well put together instrumentals, that is. It just kind of feels like on the vocal end of things, got kind of burned. I'm feeling a decent to strong 6 on this LP. Transition. If you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, music, review, forever.